Do you prefer being called Beck? Or?
Yeah, Beck's great. I think, yeah, definitely.
I didn't want to feel like, I'm like, ooh, Rebekah, in case it feels like weird to you, or...
I think when I try to stay really professional, I'm always like Rebekah,
Yeah.
and then people will just be like, oh, Beck, and I'm like, whoa, that just
Right.
really casual things right up. But then I think I'm glad they did it because that's probably what I would have wanted to do.
And you know what was a really interesting thing? Like, since I moved to Oz, like previously, everybody called me Martin. I was Martin. I'm Martin.
Are you Marty?
Yeah. But previous to that, it was only family that would say, oh, hey, Marty.
Yeah.
But it's just completely changed. And now, I might have met somebody for like the very first time or a second time, and they've just gone straight in.
Straight
like,
into the nickname.
All right, cool. Like
we're ruthless.
We're best mates now, clearly.
I think that's what makes Australians so great, in my opinion. It's just like you growing up, it's like only your dearest and nearest are going to use these pet names, and then all of a sudden a random's calling you that. You're like, whoa, hold up.
I love that. I
do.
think that's great. We'll just go straight into the show from that.
Yeah, beautiful.
This is the Level Up Podcast. I'm your host, Martin Sully, a brand strategist, designer, and founder of Snapper Studio. And I'm on a mission to help you gain clarity and confidence in your brand. I'll arm you with bite-sized tips and introduce you to friends of the show who are taking their brand to the next level. Welcome back. This is first guest of 2024, and we're just going straight in. So it's the 10th of Jan today, and there's no baby. My wife said to me yesterday, she was like, "Oh, if my waters break halfway through, are you gonna just can I come down and tell you?" I'm like, "Yeah."
I suppose.
So we'll just cut it here. What have we been up to? Oh, geez, it's just been hectic. But anyway, how was Christmas for you back?
It was great, actually. It was 1 week off and back in Newcastle here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, spending time with family and friends. I loved it.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
So for those of you that don't know Beck or Rebekah, I stumbled across her from a post where she was kind of delving into her, learnings and things from, being brought up in a Novocastrian household back in the 80s. So we're obviously quite similar age by the sounds of it. And your dad's preaching's like, your word is your bond, or, if you're going to do a good job, do it properly.
100%. I was raised with a million of those preachings.
Do you stick into them?
Definitely. I think if you are trying to, as a person, even create any kind of personal success or even a business success, you need strong values and foundations to draw from.
Yeah. And I think when we speak about values and bits and pieces quite a lot on the show. But it's interesting how it kind of points you in the right direction and, helps you out.
It does. You don't realise how many times that Dad either has a saying or a quote that you got drummed into you that's normal for you, but you say it sometimes and people are like, oh, wow, that was so profound. And you're like, that's just how I was raised. So, it can be interesting.
Oh, funny. Yeah. So, you can't kind of, reach any of those, that kind of success without having those fundamental values in place. So let's tell me a bit more about yourself.
I guess I am Rebekah McCutcheon by name, and I run a business called Fit Test Australia, and it was kind of by accident that I am in the business that I am. Not so much the business I am, but to where I am with it today.
Yeah.
Started out being a sole trader and thinking that as a sole trader it was just always going to be myself running around doing my little thing, and you don't see the growth that you potentially could could reach, and you don't realise your own potential. And it's, you kind of have to stop back at times and look at yourself and go, wow, I've come a long way and I've still got a long way to go.
Yeah. So how many people are working with you?
It would be 8 now.
Oh, wow.
That would probably be including me.
Yeah.
Still working in the business instead of on it a lot of the time.
Yeah, but I feel like that's just something that is inevitable and just like incredibly hard to escape.
Yeah.
You're either relied on to be like the font of all knowledge around your particular industry, and for the other people when they need to problem solve, I've got this thing happen, how do I fix it? You end up just jumping in and pitching in, especially if people get ill and you've got training booked or whatever it is, that you have to kind of pitch in and go, all right, I can cover it.
Roll up the sleeves and get involved.
Yeah. That's fun as well.
I do. I love it.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's part of it, isn't it?
It is. It keeps you grounded, I think, as well. If you think that you're a bit past being on the front line, it's like, nope, I'm back here more often than I expected.
Yeah. So Fit Test Australia is your business, isn't it? So, and obviously I saw, because I was doing a bit of research, read on your blog that one of the things you try and cover is what is a fit test. And obviously a lot of people that will be listening will be going, huh? What? That doesn't mean anything to them. So,
it doesn't.
Yeah, let's go.
And I'm going to say, wearing my work shirt around, a lot of time people would look at me and be like, oh, no, I haven't gone to the gym lately, or oh, don't look at me, I'm not dieting at the moment and I'm unfit. And I think, what? And then I realise they're mistaking the business of a fit test with actual fitness.
Yeah, so you're not doing a beep test with them.
No. And I've got nothing to do with fitness. It's definitely all about respiratory safety and someone's level of protection wearing that respiratory device.
Yeah. That's funny. So going back to the first kind of conversations we had, obviously I said my wife's in healthcare and she's working across COVID wards, and respiratory masks have become like the norm day to day. Still occasionally she has to put masks on and go into different wards that have got COVID on. And at the start of all that, you're fit tested for a mask that is suitable for your face and that fits and doesn't obviously let COVID through.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we started the conversation. So it was kind of funny how things kind of happen, I guess.
It definitely was. You actually thanked me for probably fit testing your wife, which I had to look into it a bit more and realise it wasn't actually me, but
that's close enough.
Very close enough. And we did do a lot of training for hospitals back when COVID first spiked, because they hadn't implemented that in-house and they needed help with that, and that was something that we specialised in, were able to help with.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Also going back to that first post that I kind of found. I found it through a guy called, I don't know if you know him, Matthew Taylor.
I do know Matthew Taylor.
So I've known Matt for probably 4 or 5 years now, and he regularly comes. I organise like a networking event locally.
I love that.
And he comes along most sort of months just to come and say hey, catch up. So he's a good friend, which is that's quite funny in itself. Newcastle is quite small. So.
It is. He is used to work for one of my business mentors, and that's how I know Matt. So my business mentor was like, Matt is great at HR and I've got to put you in touch with Matt. So that's what happened. Yeah. And he's lovely and he's very good at what he does.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah. That's funny. And then going back to that post, you mentioned other people were discrediting and defaming you or the business. You don't have to go into it if you don't want to, but I'd love to dive a little bit into that. And obviously that's a problem that you kind of came across.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to shy away from this one. It would be easy to do that, but what I did, I made a mistake, which I actually regret, but the mistake was grabbing a blog, running it through AI. And I got called out publicly and defamed and discredited as a result of that action that I took, which it was a really great opportunity to stop and say, okay, this has happened.
Yeah.
How can I take this and what can I do from this moment, put a stake in the ground and go, how am I going to do better?
Yeah.
It definitely didn't align with my values as a person, so it was a really good wake-up call as well.
Yeah.
And just kind of realise, how am I going to take this and turn it around and make it a strength now and move forward and learn from that mistake?
So what did you end up doing with the blog post? Did you take it down, or was it just completely...
Yeah, I did. I took it down.
Yeah. It's an interesting, wasn't it? I mean, like, I think those little things where you go, oh, shit, I've made a mistake.
It's hard to admit, but I feel like completely owning it and being honest about it, whether or not whoever may have saw the discredit and defaming could have been like, wow, that really takes away from the person we thought Rebekah was.
Yeah.
I feel like having the opportunity to be really honest about it makes me feel like I get to show my audience and my customers and clients and colleagues that no one's above a mistake for starters. But at the same time, if you don't own it, you don't really get to show that you are as honest as you are trying to portray yourself as.
Yeah, and I think that authenticity and being yourself is so important, especially like because you're building both simultaneously a personal brand and an actual business brand as well.
You don't realise that at the time.
Yeah,
you think you're just building a business, and you realise, well, I am the business, and as it grows, I'm growing. And
and there's so many learning opportunities for problems and mistakes, and
it's never ending, Martin.
How you can do it better.
100%.
Yeah, I just had a conversation the other day with a friend of mine who's in SEO, and I said to him, he happily just gave me a couple of little tips on my website, and I was like, cool, thanks, mate. That's been really helpful. And then like the next day I was like looking over some of the statistics and bits and pieces, and I had to reach out to him and say, like, I'm actually ranking for a keyword now, which I've never done before, ranking number 1. I was like, wow, something I actually wanted to be ranking for. And I was like, it's just like a little bit of advice, but like that's just me doing a little bit of extra learning, like through somebody else, obviously. I was just like, oh, okay, that's how it all works. 100%. That makes sense.
It's true. It's I think not being shy to ask for help or to, and always being open to learn. Yeah. Especially in the face of mistakes. It just helps you grow. Yeah. Completely.
Yeah. Agreed. I have a small pile of books that I want to read, just sat on my desk that I'm just like, I'm going to get to it at some point. But they're all like really relevant to branding and brand strategy, and the kind of that psychology of influencing people's decisions. And I'm always very careful to say that I don't want to influence people in like a really manipulative way. Yeah. And it's come from a place of collaboration and doing better. And because I think that is a really key distinction, that we're not just there just to make money from people, and that we want to actually help people and improve people's lives.
I definitely will agree with that. I think that when you make that the point of everything that you do, then the success grows around that fundamental.
I mean, at the end of the day, conversations that we have and people, day-to-day conversations, that's a big thing that's going to, just help and just see people as people.
Because we are all human.
Human connection is changed my view of things over the last sort of 4 or 5 years or so.
Yeah. I think it's in a work setting or a professional setting, it's so easy to literally dehumanize the people that you're either competing with or working to try and win their business. And you have to still remember that we are all people at the end of the day. And how do I, like you say in your branding, how do I humanize myself and them and be able to reach them in that better capacity? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So going into more of like the human side of things again for you, obviously you're working with respiratory problems and not specifically on the health side of things, but trying to help prevent some of the things.
Yep.
And there was a big announcement about engineered stone and how it's going to be banned. I think that's right.
Yeah, that's correct.
So yeah, engineered stone here in Australia has been banned, and it's got links to things like silicosis and I'm guessing other lung problems as well.
Oh, definitely. It's the beginning of a lot of, and even potentially death.
Yeah.
As the cause of those health implications.
So obviously that's a really good result for the people who are working with the industry. But on the flip side of that is obviously there's going to be an impact on your business because you're not fitting masks for people working in this engineered stone industry anymore.
Definitely.
It's an interesting one to kind of weigh up because, this is a really positive result because at the end of the day, it can only be positive, but at the flip side, there's obviously an impact on your business.
Yep.
Yeah.
The way back to how I would see this change is, again, it's definitely positive. I hope that it doesn't stop there with eliminating worksite occupational hazards that could be better controlled or even eliminated as a better practice. And then again, you could look at it from my business perspective and be like, oh, we're going to take a hit of a client that we once had that's now going to be taken away. But when I do stop and think about times like this, I love to remember why I'm doing this, and that's not to gain monetary value, which again, it's great to do that as a result of your hard work. But for me personally, I'm that passionate about someone's actual health that it means if this is going to result and save lives, then that's the best outcome in my mind. And it's like you just got to change the business and grow with it and adapt.
And by the looks of it, you are looking at doing that. Obviously, you've got something new on the cards and you've just released a new service.
Yeah, we've actually released a few new services that kind of they complement the existing. Obviously, respiratory is our core business and the one which I am the most passionate about and obviously probably most skilled in. Spirometry, audiometry and ear fit testing are the three new ones that we're going to bring in for 2024.
You'll have to go. I have no idea what spirometry is.
It's, to be honest, the first few times that I had to say that word, I was kind of tripping on it. And I was like, I can't trip on the words that are literally going to be part of my business. So spirometry is it's a baseline level assessment of someone's lung capacity. So if they're going into a new career path or an occupation where there could be impacts to health in a negative way due to airborne contamination and hazards, you just get that check to go in and go, are they okay? Have they got great lungs? And is there an existing lung issue that we can pick up on and market on that person?
So you would be working with mines, that sort of thing?
Yeah, mines, tunnellers. Tunnellers are a huge one that we work with. And I think that with COVID happening and the respiratory awareness growing, I think people really only see it as like a healthcare thing, which it was always for me, mining and civil and construction. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose, all those construction industries, and actually thinking about it, one of my recent clients, they have been building Western Sydney Airport. Yeah. Obviously, that's a big one. Actually, ginormous. Like, it's not going to be finished till like 2060, I think is the last part of it.
No way.
So
I didn't know that.
It's
That's
like nearly
huge.
40 years away until they properly finish it. And I think the first part is going to be finished in like 2026. And there's going to be a year of testing after that. Yeah. So like flights going in, making sure that all the conveyors and everything works. Yeah. And before they start actually using people, so that rather than say people, using, test people. So that'll be a really interesting one. But those, I went up there I was there for like 2 hours, if that, just in and around the dust and the, all the steel works being installed and, sandstone being, cut and put into place. Those things you just think, That's just like their regular day to day, and they've got hard hats on. That's literally it.
Yeah.
I'm like, it doesn't seem quite right, but I'm sure if it's in, part of their, I'm sure they've done a lot of health and safety checks and have everything in place to start with.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting one.
It is. I used to work on the Western Sydney Airport in the early earthworks doing the asbestos clearances, and it's a big project. And I did know 2026 was that date that they were hoping to kind of finish and get the ball rolling in that. I didn't know it was 2060 that would be the final completion.
Because there's like five terminals or 5 stages.
Huge. Like you kind of think, are we going to be able to utilise this airport? Probably not in my lifetime.
No. To an extent probably, but it's interesting, hey?
I was going to say, to better align with what you were just saying, it really is risk assessments do need to be done, and I think there's still a long way to go with respiratory protection. And like you said, you observed people cutting sandstone, and sandstone still is huge, product that has, or I'm going to say material that has silica dust in it. So back to that banning of engineered stone, it doesn't stop there. And it's like, that's a great start. How do we start to slowly move that forward amongst other occupations? Yeah,
it's really interesting. I think, and there must be tools in place to monitor air quality and things.
That's what I
was like, okay.
Yep.
There you go. That makes sense. Let's dive in a little bit more into the business side of things. Mm-hmm. Have you found that you've had to get to grips with new things while you've, and more roles than just being the managing director? Obviously, you said,
definitely
jumping into take over and do more things, but a lot of people you themselves accountant, marketing, copywriter, you just it's literally everything, or photographer.
100%,
especially in the early days.
It is. It's I would have to say, in the beginning, you don't properly understand the amount of roles you're going to take on when you start to either work for yourself or go into business. You think, I'm going to do this, but doing that means exactly what you said. Yeah. I'm now an accountant. I'm now a bookkeeper. I'm now someone who has to get good at web design and content, and I've now got to do proposals and all these documents that you're like, I don't even know what they are, and a client might ask one. You're like, yep, all right, I'll get that to you. And it's like, what is that?
Writing a tender and
the tender as well, just things that you don't even factor in. You're just left kind of scratching your head to go, all right, I've just got to get this done.
And had you done any of those, obviously maybe not the bookkeeping and accounting, but had you done any of those things previous to that?
No, not. So it can be quite funny because I listened to one entrepreneur speak, and their business grew so rapidly that when he was asked, how were they coping with it, his definition or explanation was, it's like running and jumping off a cliff and building the landing on the way down. And it was so relatable because you're like, there's so much you're figuring out as you go. And then there's probably still a lot I need to learn. Yeah. I think that you've got the fundamentals in place, but still people are using acronyms and words that I'm like, I've got to Google that.
Yeah.
What are they saying?
Yeah. And it's funny. I'll ask you about your kind of branding journey and how you kind of came to all of that side of things a bit later on. But it's funny how many times, and it's not often that a new company starts up and they go, okay, we've got all the money set aside and we're going to get all of this stuff done right to begin with. Because actually I've just finished off a brand recently, and by the time we've done the website and everything, got photos done and got a copywriter involved and all these things, and this is even touching things like looking at all the legal side of things, all up, we probably the best part of, I was trying to think, probably about $20,000, and that's probably at the low end for a lot of businesses. So it's unusual that somebody goes in right at the beginning and says, okay, I've got spare $20,000, that they can just go, straight into getting their branding done. So it's why a lot of people end up, kind of going the quickest route they can to start getting something together to start actually making money.
It's true. It's like an expense you don't factor in that you really should.
Yeah.
Because again, you're left with that brand, and once it's established, it becomes critical to like, how would you want to change it? And what's the right change to reach your audience? But is brand recognition already established? How do we combat that?
That's a thing you got to work to capture that and keep it without doing any unforeseen damage or being, seen to be imitating another brand. It's it's interesting. You always got to keep your eye on it. Because there's always new competitors as well out that could be doing something you haven't seen yet that you go, oh, actually doing something better than we do currently. How can we innovate and do, what's the next thing, what's the next point we kind of push towards, and do we need a new website or whatever? It's it's a bit of a juggle.
It is. It is something that you constantly, exactly like you said, you've got to. It's an active thing, and as a business owner and someone who runs the business, it's like constantly actively managing all aspects. But like you said, branding is it's so critical, and you do have to keep an eye and stay innovative and relevant. Yeah,
it can be stressful, hey?
It really can. It can keep you up at night, that's for sure.
So what's been the biggest challenge or to you over the last 4 years or so?
I would have to say scaling properly. I think it's easy to scale. It's not easy to scale. I don't know why I just said that. Like, it can seem easy to scale with like, I'm going to hire new people, I'm going to do this, that. Yeah. But to do it properly is actually really hard. I think that's been a big challenge. And then trusting people with your brand, especially if you started out as a one-man band, you're kind of like, oh, is this person going to go out there and properly represent me and everything that I stand for? It's a lot. So I think that's a big challenge that I've had to face. Yeah,
absolutely. Oh, it's it's really hard, hey? Mm-hmm. Knowing the right time to add people into the business and kind of let go. It's wild.
It is wild. It's sometimes when someone's not the best fit, but you try to give chances and try to help them grow, and you do have to know when is the appropriate time to let some people go. And I think that's not a hard thing to do. Yeah.
I don't know if you found this. I've found a couple of times where people have, not what I've been hiring people, when people have been approaching me to work with them and work as a kind of an external agency to help them either rebrand or become more integrated into the team. And quite often that becomes like you doing weekly meetings or day-to-day meetings, just checking over the brand, keeping things ticking over. I found that people kind of approach you to do those things and then like completely ghost you, and you go, what happened? And there's been just some sort of like situations like that where you're like, oh, this is all going brilliantly, and then all of a sudden like you get the rug pulled from underneath your feet and nothing happens. I'm like, is that normal? So this is a question for you. Like, have you found things like that where things are being kind of mentioned or
you think you've got it in the bag now and it's a done deal, and nothing eventuates from it, and you're left kind of going, did I lose to a competitor? Did I say something wrong? Did we misquote? You want to dissect it and figure it out, but sometimes you just have to learn to know that maybe the timing's not right for them and they don't have that courage to let you know, and just be clear with their communication that we'll come back to this later. You just get ghosted.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is just sometimes to actually just let go and go, okay, not everything is going to work out, not everything is going to eventuate and go forward. Sometimes you just go, oh well, move on.
Got to move on.
Move on to the next thing.
Definitely. Always onwards and upwards.
How have you found it kind of hiring new, more fit test consultants? And obviously, are you actively looking for more people, or is it just kind of when you get awarded a big contract or a...
It can be a little bit of both. I think it's always good to have an eye on who might be out there that may be a great fit and bring some value to your business.
Yeah.
The other times it might be, we've just won some work that I know that my current team might not be able to fulfill due to personal commitments.
Yeah.
So you're constantly having to, go between those two and realise when's the right time to bring in new people. And it's not an easy juggle.
No, it's not. One thing I really, really wanted to ask you about is, and I don't often, because most people that have come on have been single, or, they've had 2 to 3 people. When you start getting a slightly bigger crew with you, how have you found like integrating like your core values or the business's core values, and how do people kind of, take them on board themselves and, use it as part of the internal brand, I guess?
I think that is a great question, because I think it's something that we continually need to grow on and work on ourselves. I think in the beginning, when you are just one person and you slowly bring these people in around you to help you do more and service the work that you're getting, you neglect that. That's the most honest answer I can give you. It's only when things slow down and you have a moment to reassess and say, hey, why is the team not doing what I would expect, or, things aren't getting executed to the level. You have to realise I never properly communicated that. We never did have those conversations. It's like they know quickly on entry. It's like, this is everything I stand for and what I believe in.
Yeah.
But it's not consistently drummed into them or reminded to them that these are our core values, and we don't pivot away from those.
Oh, I'm like, I've been in businesses of 2,000 people, and like when you get to those scales, you get like employee handbooks, and you're like, even as an employee, you're like, I'm never going to read this, like a 100-page document, like.
And you're like, they've got everything they need to know now to succeed in this business, but it's overwhelming how they're supposed to do that.
But if you've got, if people have questions, and this is why, the necessity of having like weekly meetings or meetings with your staff, just to go over, what questions have you got that you can cover in a quick session that isn't just being like, read page 47 of the handbook, you'll find the answer there.
It's there for you to see. It really is. For me, it's kind of, I do like to ask my staff what's working, what isn't, where, if something goes wrong, hey, can we look at this? Could we have done better? What maybe can we do to prevent this moving forward? And then maybe you're creating things as you go as well that you probably, I think you as a person, you think you've got a lot together, but your team really do get to bring in new perspectives that you probably never would have entertained those ideas or thoughts before, and you need that outside help to bring it to light, if that's the right way to say it.
No, yeah, absolutely. I guess some of that kind of goes into the kind of the vision of the business going forward. So actually, that's one thing I pretty much ask everyone. Like, what's the vision for FTA going forward?
Oh, I love this question. I didn't have one for a long time because I guess I wasn't being asked, but as I get asked, I'm like, oh my gosh, I really need to get an answer to this. And for me personally, it's when anybody thinks of respiratory protective equipment and fit testing, they think of Fit Test Australia, FTA, like first and foremost as being that person to do it above and beyond anybody else. Yeah. Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? Like, it goes back again, like, to how we had the conversation of, you don't necessarily go straight in with all your branding.
No.
And think about like things like your vision or your mission statement and all the, all the other various, like, because there's probably about 15 different statements that kind of cover brand strategy. Like you're not normally asked about them until you get in either a few years, or you're really, you've got the money to kind of do it, and somebody help you explore that stuff. Like, because most of the time it's just like, I'm going to run a business.
I think in the beginning, even if you were to do it, it would be done so poorly because you're just trying to find those like keywords, the buzzwords that are going to make people attach credibility to you. But as you grow, I think we don't have it on our website, so we actually, and it is something that I love reading people's visions and their mission statement. And the reason we don't have one on there, I think I'm constantly trying to figure out what is the one above everything else, because you have a few and you kind of go, what is the standout for me that I really want to like now display so that if you had one opportunity to look at us, what does that, what's being said?
And that's interesting that you say you haven't got it on your website, because there's a set of people in the kind of obviously my industry that say, oh, you should never tell people what your vision is, or you should never tell people what your mission is, and like people like gatekeep this information. I'm like, I hate that. Like I'm like, just be honest with people, because that's the really interesting thing, that people will look to you and say, okay, well, what are they trying to do? Like some of my favorite brands are things like Zero Co. You're absolutely like, I don't know if you'd know them.
No, I actually don't.
They do single-use. They're trying to eliminate single-use plastic, clean up the oceans, but they basically create refillable pouches that you can get sent to your home, and you fill up your own bottles and that sort of thing, and then you send those pouches back. They refill them and send so it's like a circular, household soap, that sort of thing. Shampoos, conditioners, like you name it, toilet bleach, everything. Like those ideas, and like they're like, you can find out so much more information about these companies just by having a little bit more information on the website, and they couldn't communicate exactly what they do without telling people.
It's true.
That's it. Like just tell people about what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go, because people will like really get involved in it and just either become like massive fans or tell other people about your business, and that's what you're trying to do.
I can definitely understand the gatekeeping. You kind of feel like, especially we're a niche service, you feel like if you put too much out there, it's just left open to be taken by competitors and to maybe for them to adopt and then compete on. So, but at the same time, I love that originality and authenticity for people to be able to say, no, they're not shy in saying exactly what they expect to be doing, and let's watch them do it. They're accountable now. Yeah.
And also at the same time, if people are then coming along and stealing what you're doing, like you're still one step ahead of them, because you're going on to the next point. And that's like, okay. There was always going to be somebody. I've had, I track on my website how people kind of function across it and how they scroll, and which bits they highlight. And I have literally got recorded like footage of not everything they've done, but where people have like copied the entire blog post, and I'm like, if I just do a really quick search, I'm sure I will just find this blog post somewhere else. I'm like, how do you stop that? And you're like, well, I'm just going to rewrite it, or I'm just going to add some more information into it to make it better, or just change it, change the structure, or
even just take it as a compliment that you're worth replicating, I guess. It is one of those things. It's like you couldn't stop it.
It's weird, hey?
It is, and I'm like guilty for actually doing it one time, but it is that for me, you just go, we are the industry leader when that's happening. We do have a competitor that's branding and name is so alike to ours, but you got to stop and go like, I have to see that as a really big bonus that we're doing something right, and we must be seen as an industry leader for that to happen. And competition's great. It keeps us all on our toes and it keeps you evolving. It's the only way to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the last kind of questions, are there any kind of new areas you want to move into or invest in?
Definitely. I think at the moment we are exploring a lot of options. There's so many opportunities available out there, and what is relevant to FTA and to myself, I think what is going to help us achieve our goals. So we do have things in the pipeline, and some that I can't disclose right now, which is exciting to say, to be able to answer that. But yeah, you kind of go, yeah, we're definitely growing and evolving and want to explore more of our capabilities and bringing that in.
I wonder if you'll have any issues kind of integrating all the new various services or products and things.
I think it will be like anything. There's always those growing pains attached. Even if you think you've executed something really well or implemented it properly, it's not until you properly start to service those things that you're going to experience everything that's going to go wrong. And that's the hard part. It's like you don't, on paper, everything looks great, and the actual day to day, it's like it can be a disaster, and it's like, how do we move through this and wade our way past this disaster and make it, turn it into strength. Yeah.
Less disasters.
Yeah.
So I want to actually go back as well. How did the business come about? Was there a catalyst? Obviously, it started in 2019, if I'm
Yeah, it did. Remember? It started in 2019. Probably was more just branding the business and registering it back then. I didn't properly start work until maybe 2020. And it was me working as a hazardous materials consultant and working for an organisation that had such a range of services, and like fit testing was just one aspect of so many things that organisations offered. It was no one specialised in it. And I had a fit test done, and in that fit test, nothing was really explained. There was no education attached. And for me personally, it was like, wow, I didn't really take my respiratory protection seriously.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like once I got taught to do the service, and the teaching was a bit poor, and it was really on me to figure it out, how to do it properly, so I wasn't embarrassed when things went wrong in my job. I just was like, someone needs to do this and provide this service as a specialised service, because it's not just this tiny little thing. It's people's health, and you know what I mean, to attach so much pride to it and know that you can impact someone, and maybe with a bit of education on how important that device is could change them to wear it better and take that more seriously, and that's probably where it started.
And you know what, like your timing probably couldn't have been better with COVID.
I always get told this, and I'm going to say one of the biggest questions we always got asked was like, were you pre-COVID or were you pop up during COVID? And we get the privilege of saying that we were pre-COVID.
Yeah. And, wear
COVID,
that badge.
We're such a badge of pride, really, because I think even though COVID hitting really did impact the business in the beginning, because it took away the core business, it was adapting and seeing now we have a new opportunity and how we're going to make that work. And a lot of businesses have popped up as a result of COVID, and I think riding that wave, and that's fine too, but you kind of go, we definitely love what we do, and we did it regardless of the world circumstances at the time.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I had a client that they did all the COVID testing for the mines. They were doing, 2 every day into the mine, out of the mine, COVID tests, and they did something like 150,000 tests a week or something. But they were paid for every test, like
phenomenal.
like $60 or something for each test.
Yeah.
But, times that by 150,000 a week, you're like, oh my God, that's
someone's making a killing. Like I actually wish we got into COVID testing, to be honest, all the kits. Some people that I've met that saw the opportunity and jumped on that during the pandemic actually did really well for themselves and kind of set their business up to go on to do so much more now and gave them that capital.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I do get that. they made a lot of money from that side of things. But yeah, it's interesting, hey?
It is interesting.
It'd be interesting. Well, like what's going to be the next thing that comes along, because there's always something, like going back 10, 15 years ago when my wife started working in health, there were things like swine flu around, bird flu, like there's been all sorts. It's not like just, one thing that pops up every now and again.
100%. And I think that was one of the biggest obstacles we had to overcome when we started working with healthcare was healthcare really did see the service as, it's just born for COVID. And it's like, no. In Queensland, they did fit testing for their healthcare workers back when they did have the SARS and Ebola outbreak 12 years ago, roughly.
Yeah, and that's the same as in the UK when my wife was there. Yeah, she got fit tested for a mask, but these were the ones with the filters on the front.
Yep.
So I don't,
reusable.
I'm guessing they still do them. Or they're
definitely,
not preferred in, I think they're not
used
so much in
healthcare.
Health now. But
yeah. Might intimidate patients is probably the main reason. It's like Darth Vader's coming at me. I don't feel safe. But it is one of those things that for the healthcare side of it, I love that whole, no, this is just better practice for respiratory protection when you are. And 95s have always been worn. Like I've spoken to anaesthetists and surgeons that are at the top of their field that talk about wearing a mask in 1996 when they first started. And it's like, everyone wore them.
Yeah.
You probably just didn't have to wear them as much. And there was no focus on, is it appropriate for you and is it actually protecting you?
Yeah. There's so many different various airborne viruses and, and other ones that you just go,
There's a new variant apparently out now. It's like, we don't need that again.
Yeah. I think judging by emails and things, my wife was saying that the COVID's got really bad again. But
it has,
okay, all right, well,
I think it's called JN.1 is what I heard the radio call it yesterday, which I was like, what? We had Omicron and now we're going into like JN.1, like numbering it.
I should just call it A, B, C, D. It'll just go through the alphabet, all right?
COVID A, we're down to C, D.
How can people find out about, you? And do you want people to connect up to you? And like, obviously, if then they're an appropriate industry that might need respiratory things, like
love LinkedIn. So I'm big on LinkedIn. So you can reach me personally on that. But then we have our website and you can email us, but contact us through the website as well. Yeah,
cool. I'll put some of those bits and pieces in so people can find you and connect up to you and have conversations and that
would be great.
Find out a little bit more about what are you doing.
Yeah.
And before you go, is there a particular topic that you would want to find out about branding or, a question you've got for me?
I definitely do. So I'm glad you asked.
Hang on, let me get on my list.
Exactly. It's longer than Santa's. To short that answer and to not swamp you with too many questions, it would be, how do you brand a product or a service that people don't actually want? Mm-hmm. Like they're not buying it or using it because they want to. It's mainly they've been told or forced to actually engage in that product or service. Like how do you brand that?
That's I don't think I've ever come across that question before. It's really interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, like, it's really simple for you to brand something that people do want and kind of position the product in front of people. That's really simple. But if it's a product that nobody cares about or doesn't want to be involved in, I guess that refining who that target market is, that would be like step one, because they're like, for every kind of, whether if it's not a business to consumer product, like if it's not going to people, if it's going to a business, they'll have like knowledge of what that is. You've got to just then identify the key people that you need to speak to be able to say, look, this is that, outline the benefits of what that product is. And I always say you need to sell a product, you need the functional benefit. What does it actually do? The emotional benefit of how does it make you feel after you've used it? And, a philosophical, thing. How does it, what is it fulfilling in your life? Bigger than that. If you can think about those three things and outline those questions, then you're going to be going in a direction to kind of cover it.
It's interesting because obviously you're all about branding.
Yeah.
I did take your quiz.
I know. I saw. I was like,
I actually was like, not many people do, but I'm going to smash this quiz. Here's my time to shine. I thought I was going to kill it. And as the questions popped up, I chose my answers, and at the end, I only got 2 out of 5. So
do you know what I did see, and I was like, oh,
you're like, she failed.
No, she failed. No, but I was like, do you know what? I'm going to get every podcast guest to do this from now on.
You should,
because it's a good little thing to do as well, and a really good little exercise. But there's literally no wrong answer.
Yeah,
and on the quiz, you can only select one that's right. So I was like, okay, all right. But one person got 4 out of 5. And I'm like, geez, they did well.
I honestly was like 5 out of 5. Here I come. so when I got the 2, I was like, well, that humbled me right out.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything about branding.
Somebody failed on the donut question, and they were not happy. They were like, how did I not get the donut one? I got everything else right.
Did I get it right?
I'll have to.
You have to look. I put happiness because what donut doesn't make you happy?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Krispy Kreme, there's a plug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You must have been you must have had a dough heads at some point in the junction in Newcastle. If you've been to Newcastle,
my sister is in Newcastle, and she has taken me. And I was like, oh, okay. I was trying to be good, and when we got there, I was like, oh my gosh, these donuts are amazing.
Yeah.
And I did buy a bunch.
Yeah,
spent more than I wanted to admit on donuts. I was like, I'm guilty.
You didn't eat them all yourself, though, did you?
No,
Surely.
I didn't. I shared because, again, I love a Krispy Kreme, and I definitely can polish off more than I'd be willing to admit. So,
was it more than 2 out of 5?
100% it's more than 2 out of 5. So, great question.
That's brilliant. I love it. All right, that's amazing. I think we've probably covered more than we expected.
Thank you for having
Donuts.
me on the Level Up podcast, Martin. It's
Thank
lovely
you.
to meet you, and I love what you're doing.
Thank you.